Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome back to the Arm Hug podcast. And today I have Mike Suarez, and he is with WMC Brand Development. Did I say that right?
Yeah, WMC Brand Development.
Perfect. And he's going to tell us a little bit about why he started and why it's important that you reach out to him because he's got a really great business and he's got some really great accolades. I've seen some of the work and videos you've done out there. So tell us, why did you start this business?
Okay, so just before we jumped on, we talked about, you see WMC Sports Marketing. So, my background is in sports and entertainment marketing. And at the time, I was working with the Battle of the Trenches Foundation, which is a youth development organization located in Gwinnett County, Georgia. We had a youth football team. I used to be there, encouraging the kids, doing my marketing and media thing, pictures, videography, all of that stuff. So I had a parent approach me. She was like, I didn't know that you did, the websites and, the flyers that I'm seeing and all this stuff. Have you ever worked with a phlebotomy company? And I'm like, no, I haven't, but I mean, I build websites. I'm sure I can help you. Well, she was like, well, I need a website, because she helped me out, with some flyer designs and different things like that. So, I said, okay, and I'll give her, a shout out here. It's Whitney from Leverage Labs, located in Snellville, Georgia. So, give her just too. But, I created the website from her and, all that stuff. And she had a phlebotomy training school. So she started referring her students to me, those phlebotomists who were starting their new,
Right.
so I started from, designing logos, designing the flyers and websites and things like that. But what really kind of sucked me into the industry is when I started to look around and, see other, phlebotomist websites and different things people were doing for the industry, people were just kind of not giving them a standard healthcare look and not giving them a look that would make them competitive with some of the major healthcare companies. The fact of the matter is, when people go to your website, it's like your digital storefront. They're going to judge your value based upon what they see. I always, when I'm talking to these phlebotomists, I always explain it like if you had a boutique and someone walked in and the floor was dirty, the clothes, weren't folded up neat, they weren't hung up and organized nice. How would that person perceive your value? Would that person go in your store and continue to shop? Or would they walk away and find someone else who is going to give them that perceived value?
That's
Yeah,
exactly right. I think you're right. I think we do need better messaging, right?
for sure.
Um, People are really desperate out here. I've heard stories of scams, and maybe people who aren't in the industry trying to get into it.
Exactly.
So, where's the heart in that? So, what do you think makes you different?
So what makes me different is my understanding. So for about the last that was about 5 years ago when that happened. And at first it was just something I was doing passively. I mean, if she gave me a call about a client, cool, I'd take them. If not, I wasn't marketing my services. I wasn't, actively seeking, healthcare professionals or CPNs to, work with. So about 2 years ago, I got approached by Khalil Thomas. I know he's been one of your guests in the past, but I was approached to Khalil Thomas and said, "Hey, you know what? You're doing pretty good. I have some suggestions for you." So he referred me a few clients and everything, but the difference was, we sat and talked about different things. So you know, at first I was just building a website, making it look good, looking at other healthcare companies and just, making it look nice as possible. But once I start speaking with him and learning the ins and out of the industry, learning the services, learning the panels, learning customer behavior and different things like that, and actually, diving into the niche, I start understanding what they need more from a functionality standpoint as opposed to an aesthetic standpoint. You don't have to tell anyone that you need a website that looks nice and professional. That's kind of a given. That's, already on the table. But what they need further than that is a website that converts leads into patients. All right. So, when a person goes to that website, it needs to be easy. It needs to be simple. The booking process needs to be clearly outlined. Who you are needs to be clearly outlined, and your niche also should be clearly outlined. So when you have a customer going to your site, they understand, hey, this is for me. This is the services that I'm looking for. And once you get to that point, you want to make sure you're capturing their information as a lead because they may not be ready just to book right then. Most people aren't. Most people are browsing. Most people are just checking you out. But you want to check, you want to capture that lead so that you can still convert them in the future.
Right. Right. I learned something about automatic follow-ups. Do you
Mhm.
know anything about that, or you can talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Those would be called automations, but that's just like automatic follow-ups, like you said. So automations are basically when you have functions on your website, which are called triggers. All right, so let's just say we have a contact form on your website. So on a lot of them, I like to do like a light box, which is basically like, if you ever go to like a retail store and that promo pops up once you go to their website,
Yeah.
like to use those as contact forms so that a person can, okay, 10% off your first service or some type of low ticket offer. So that's basically just bargaining their information. So once they fill out that information and press send, that's when the automation happens. You can send them an email with, different services. You can send them additional discounts. But the important part is you can capture that lead right then and there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, where are people going for their websites that you feel that the need really started to, it was almost like forced, or like people were maybe trying to do it themselves?
Yeah, that happens a lot of times. And I always, encounter that. Well, I can do it myself, and I. But can you actually do it yourself? Can you do it
Yeah.
at a high level yourself? Because I always tell people this skill set that I have as far as web design, anybody can learn it. I do graphic design, different things like that. Anybody can learn it. But it's going to take time and so much time. Do you have
Yes.
time? Is that going to take away with time from you serving your patients? Um, so, I have a lot of, redesigns that I do, and people have, put their heart in it and they definitely have good intentions. And, sometimes it just doesn't, hit the mark. Because the thing about the website is it's very black and white if you're successful. You look at your analytics and are you converting or are you not? It's really no gray areas. It's really no feelings there. Is it converting patients or is it not? What is your revenue from the month through your website? If it's not where you want it to be, then it may be a design issue. It could be several issues, but you doing it yourself and not being able to recognize that it's really, really hurts your business.
Yeah. I really like what you said there, revenue through your website. I never really thought about it like that, 'cause sometimes I think like my website's just supposed to be there. And if people want to see what I do, they click on it. Do you see any, I guess, do you have any stories of things that you've seen that have not worked?
So well, so maybe not necessarily specific examples, but specific trends. So the traditional way to do a website is to have a website. Let's just talk about three common phlebotomy services. So let's just say you offer routine labs, you offer stat draws, and you also offer customizable labs or specialty kits, right? So traditionally, what you want to do is you would have a page for each service, and each separate service will have a separate booking place.
Right.
That's the old school way to do websites. That's too robust. People's attention spans aren't as no, they aren't as attentive as they used to be. They aren't as willing to sit and read. Part of that comes from 90% of the people that visit your website are going to be visited on their phone. So they want to be able to scroll, click, and book fast. All right. So that's one mistake that I do see. People try to overly explain on their website. Um, People just don't want to. go on the website and read, 10 paragraphs, 3 chapters, and a prelude on your website, so to speak.
Yeah. Do you use Wix or platforms that are already out there? Like, I think Squarespace is another one. Or is it like on WordPress?
So actually, I'm a partner at Wix, or my agency is partnered with Wix. So we design through Wix, and the advantage of Wix, I think that sets it apart to a lot of the competitors, is it's the most customizable and it's also easy to manage. You can manage it from your mobile phone through the Wix owner app. And that's really important, especially when you're starting off, because a lot of these businesses, they're putting out so many funds towards this, first centrifuges, first tubes, first office space. They don't have the budget to hire someone to manage their website on a full-time basis, nor do they even have the traffic that, it would even require you to have that. So Wix gives them the option to change simple things, manage their automations, change their services, communicate with customers easily and straight from their phone. And that's what I think sets Wix apart from a lot of the other website design platforms.
So you talk a little bit about what happens after the website is up.
Mhm.
Do you have to keep maintenance on the website? Like, what are your or like advice you have? Because things change throughout the business. Sometimes people add new specialties, sometimes there's new pictures of reviews. So is that being handled by you, or is that something you recommend people do it on their own?
Okay, so I do offer, monthly management services for those who are interested and may need that. Sometimes it is easier and sometimes they have the budget for that. And that's fine. But my goal is to actually have them be able to manage it on their own going forward. All right. So with my services, it's not only just a web design, but I also offer a web design training course where I teach them how to manage it. They'll be on their dashboard, which is just the back office on their end. I'll be on my end. We'll jump on Zoom. I'll share my screen and I'll go over the main functions that they will be using going forward managing their website. So the goal is not just to give them a website that they like, but give them a website that they can use that is an asset and not a liability, and just adding to the million tasks that you have to do during the day.
Did you have to shadow like a phlebotomist to learn all the things that they do? Like, how did you, yeah, like how did, I guess talk a little bit about how you came up with this, besides it was a task being given to you, but how did you know that what they were looking for? You know, sometimes people have ideas and then it's like they can't put them on paper.
So trial and error. So trial and error. So just, continuing to work and actually caring about it. I think that's the first thing. I mean, some people call it passion. I just say, having work integrity and integrity in your work. And if you're going to do something, do it at a high level. So, I began just picking, like Khalil's brain. There's a couple other phlebotomy trainers, around the country that I, connected with. Another one that you interview, Sabir Massey at Massey's Phlebotomy Training School, and just had conversations with them and, you know, learned about the panels, learned about what the actual consumers and the patients are looking for as well. Um, you know, the thing about it is, I've taken so much time just to understand like client psychology and the patient psychology because like just for example, all right, if your website has a specific niche, like let's just say it's cardiology, right, or oncology, or it may be senior care. So if you have a senior website that's primarily focuses on senior care, you want to make that site a little bit simpler than you do if you have a site that is primarily having providers visit and book services for their facility. And you need to know the difference in the customer. That elderly customer may not be as tech savvy. They may not be as functional with that website as opposed to a provider who's going to be more of an HR person looking at that, who's going to be looking for a lot of different details that that elderly patient may not be looking for. So I just really took the time to, pay attention to the industry, of course, the trial and error, of course, doing websites that aren't converting and understanding why they aren't converting and then just improving on my services and my skills over time, over that 5 years I've been doing this.
Yeah, and you can hear it in your voice when you talk about it. You
Well,
can hear
thanks.
the experience. Yeah, like the experience and the passion is there. I think that it's really important just to, while you're growing your business, you have somebody in your corner that's also looking out for you. So that's what I feel like I'm getting from you, which
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to do it right. I'm kind of old school in the fact that I really value that word of mouth referral, because the phlebotomy industry is very small. It seems like everybody knows everybody. So, I definitely want to make sure I keep, my services in high regard with people, and that, when just say, for example, I just did a website for a training school in Memphis. I want her to be so satisfied with her website services that she's going to refer me to all of her students, and that's just going to, grow my business. Of course, create revenue. That's what we're all in business for. So, I just, try to have integrity with that, and just take the extra time, because one thing I had to, which is different than the sports portion when I was transitioning. When I was dealing with the sports, I'm dealing with pro athletes, a very, hyper masculine environment, a very tough and rough environment, and then going over to a phlebotomy environment where you're dealing with a lot of nurses and healthcare professionals, and learning how to be a lot more patient and to be a lot more caring and understand what this customer values as opposed to what this customer may value over on the sports side. When I got to the healthcare portion, I realized that, you know, I have to be, very soft and very gentle and very helpful, because when a person is coming in, they may not know anything about a website and what it's supposed to be. They just may be clueless, and and they're relying on me for something that they're passionate about as well. So I have to take that serious. What I usually like to do is just have like a vision meeting with them, and we just talk about, what you envision. And sometimes I do get the occasional, client that's like, hey, whatever, you know, just make it look nice. Make it pop is what they say. I'm like, make it pop. What does that mean? I still to this day don't know what make it pop means. But I have the make it pop client, and then I have those clients who, I want this, I want this color, I want to look like this, I want this to happen. And it's my job to, hold on, this is what you want, but this is what you need. And to present it in a way that they understand that. Because I don't just make it my business to just do it. Okay, you say you want it that way, I'm gonna do it that way. You wanted it that way, you live with it. I just, something about that never sits right with me. So I always end up saying, hey, you know what? This is my recommendation, and this is why I think that's not so good of an idea, or maybe we should do it this way. So, that's, I kind of embrace that portion of it too, and have learned to embrace it.
So I think I have probably one last question. I'm not sure if we have enough for two. Maybe we might have enough for two. I think we have enough for a couple more questions.
Okay.
So can you talk a little bit about what your process is? So you already talked about that you sit down, you plan the vision. How long does it take? What's the timeline? Like when will we expect the final result?
Okay, so from start to finish, usually the first draft will be done in about between like 7 to 10 business days, depending on the workload. Sometimes it can get up to 15 days, but that's usually stated at consultation. I'll let you know, hey, we got quite a bit of projects. The turnaround time is about 15 days right now, and usually they understand, because that is actually a quick turnaround time.
Yeah.
Website terms usually is like 30 days. Um, so the process will begin with, we have that vision meeting, like you said. And the next thing I would do is, figure out the color palette I'm going to use and do the actual wireframe. The wireframe is basically just the overall structure. I just take a look at the information I have, what they offer. If they have some unique points that I want to highlight immediately, I maybe, have the why choose us section a little bit higher, but just basically design based upon what's best for that specific company.
And then you already talked about like describing the design. And if someone has their design, they talk about it with you. Have you ever had, I guess, to work with someone who already had something and you had to scrap it and then build another
Yes,
website? Oh,
yes,
really?
absolutely, absolutely. So there's so a lot of times the people will say, hey, already have a website. Can you make it better? And then I look at it and it's like, um, You kind of have a website, technically you have a website, but not really. And then there, like I said, there are those others where they have a website and it's like, okay, well, I see what you're trying to do. Some people, do a little bit better than others on their own. So sometimes there's a thing where I can say, okay, well, let me go in here and I can work with what you already have. But there are times when you just have to completely start over. And usually those people, what I always ask them when they kind of put up resistance sometimes, well, I like it, I like this, and I like that. I'm like, well, let's do this. Let's pull up United Healthcare, let's pull up Peachtree Health Centers, let's pull up Piedmont Healthcare, and let's pull up your website and let's look at it. All right. So does your website compete with these websites? And usually when they look, it's really a no-brainer. They're like, you know what? You're right. Scrap it. Let's get me something that's actually going to convert.
Right. It's like, do you want more sales or do you just want to make it prettier?
Yeah, and that's that balance that people have to have. And in this industry, um, I think that I do a good job of convincing people and making a great case and letting them know that what you want may not be necessarily what you need. You may want it to look a certain way, but what you need is totally different. What you want is not going to get you customers. What you need is a website that's going to give you the best chance to generate customers. Because no one can, make anybody, you know, get a blood draw or use their services. Like I never make any guarantees. I learned that early in my PR career when I was, working in sports marketing. You never guarantee anyone anything because you cannot guarantee that someone's going to go to your site and book a routine draw or a panel that you have. But what you can do is make sure that you have the best opportunity to do that. That your website is set up optimally so that if they do want to do that, you're capturing their leads and they're able to book that service easily and stress free.
Yeah, you made me think of something else and I can't remember. But I guess talking about the bigger picture, um, what's next for you? Are you just focusing right now on all healthcare personnel, so phlebotomists only?
Well, I do sites for all healthcare personnel, whether it's home
Mm.
care, I've done IV hydration, and these are just recently. I mean, you name it, if it's a healthcare company, I've worked with them. I do websites for sports companies. I'm
Wow.
actually doing a website for a major church down here. So, I mean, I do general website, but phlebotomy has just really been an industry that I've really immersed myself in and had some success there as well. So I'm very appreciative to all of the clients that have trusted me with this process, and I don't take that for granted, and that's why I do take it serious, and that's why I'm constantly trying to get better. And even some of my clients that work with me in the beginning, and I may not have done things as optimally as I know how to do now. I'm usually open to helping them out and making those improvements. I'm very accessible to my clients, and a lot of times website designers want to charge for everything. Charge, 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 charge. Okay, can you add, a sentence here? Okay, $50. You know what I mean? So I've just never been that type. I've always, valued my clients and, wanted to see them do well. So, it's sometimes it's stressful, just like any other business or any other job. But in the end, it's definitely fulfilling when I see that final product and I, have a client hit me up and say, hey, I booked 3 patients this week. I got my first patient. It really worked. I got, 60 leads and converted 5 of them. So, when I hear that kind of thing, it's really fulfilling, professionally.
Yeah, thank you so much for reaching out to me and making this happen because I think that that's part of it, right? This is the community,
Mhm.
and we need to talk to each other to know that this is what's going on and this is what could be better.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we can do for you? Anybody that's listening can do for you?
Well, there's always that follow button that you can always follow me on Instagram,
Hey,
WMC Brand Development. You can also follow me on TikTok at WMC Brand Development. Give me a follow and check out some of the sites that I'm creating. And I'm always, doing videos with tips and different things like that. So I'm always open to work with anybody. And even if I don't, and even if you decide to do it yourself or you decide to go a different direction, at least you'll leave with that knowledge of what it's supposed to look like, the main pages that you need, all that information. And even if you just want to reach out and just get some insight, I do free consultations, free website consultations. So I'm always open, and always accessible.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, great. That was my last question and also my tidbit there, but I'm trying to think if there's anything else you want to add, but I'm going to put all your information at the bottom of this video.
Okay.
And then if you could just send me over some of your information so that everybody else who's watching this video can have it too. So thank you so much for jumping on. Thank you so much for doing this and for sharing all this information because someone's going to find it helpful. And just like you are on TikTok, Instagram, they're finding it helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate you having me. You're one of the channels that, I've always been kind of a fan. I'm not gonna lie, been a little bit of fan of your channel and just kind of learning who's who and just,
Right.
definitely
Who's who?
all of your videos and liked all of your videos. So it was good. Speaking with you and I consider it an honor.
Oh, thank you, Mike.